Right, so guys, welcome back to another video today. I know I haven't uploaded in a while. There's been lots of things going on with family and the whole coronavirus thing going on at the moment, but I'm back. I'm going to carry on uploading different kinds of videos and the videos to do with how to get your bike dialed. Today we're going to be looking at our suspension and how we can dial it to our weight and our riding style. So the first thing we need a shock pump. You don't need an expensive one. This is just a cheap one from Halfords. The pressure gauge is probably not calibrated. It's probably a couple of bar, couple of PSI out, but it doesn't really matter when we're just making sure that sag is 30%. So today we're going to be looking at forks and shocks. So it basically covers a wide audience from hardtails to full suspension bikes. We're going to be looking at air pressure that's put in them and volume tokens. And we're going to go into more detail about the mid-stroke and the progression. So the first ones we're going to look at is our forks. It's quite easy to set up yourself. All you need to do is have a friend or a family member in this instance to help you stand straight up on the bike. You want to try and put all your riding gear on, but if you can't put all the riding gear on, it doesn't really make a big difference. So as you can see, I've wedged my bike in between the washing machine and the cupboard like I always do. First thing we need to do is slide the red ring to the bottom. Once we've done that, now we can talk about how much sag we need to put in the shock. So we want roughly about 30-35% sag in any shock, even if it's your front forks, your rear shock, anything like that. So now what you do is you lean over your front handlebars, don't pull any brakes or anything, hold it still, and if it's too high, like 40-50%, add a bit more air in, the stanchions will come out and you get it perfect. If it's too low, let a bit of air out and the stanchions will go further into the lowers and you'll get that perfect 30%. Now we're going to go over to the rear shock. It's exactly the same, but for my instance, I don't have a ring on my rear shock anymore. I don't know if it fell off, but I've lost it. So what we can do is, instead of putting a zip tie the right way round around it, this could damage our stanchion when we cut it off, say with a knife or a pair of scissors or a multi-tool. We want to put the zip tie the wrong way round so we can easily take it off afterwards. So we want to repeat the same steps as we did in our front forks on our rear shock, and we want to sit on the bike to make sure we've got 30% sag with adding or taking out air. The next thing we're going to talk about is tokens in our shocks. So tokens look like this. They're little grey things that go in the shock. They can be different colours depending what manufacturer you have. Say if they're Fox, I think they're orange, their RockShox grey, but you can get third-party ones and like second-hand and different things like that. Depends what you really want. You can get different size ones, really thin ones, really long ones, different things like that. I'm only going to be covering the front forks today as I don't have a grip wrench to take the outside off the rear shock, so sorry about that. People over at GMBN or Park Tool have lots of tutorials which will take you through the rear shock setup on the bike. So before we do anything, you've got to make sure you get all of the air out, and I mean all of the air out of your front shocks. So I recommend you use a pump and the bleed valve on it, because it can be very dangerous if all the PSI is not out. When we go wrenching off the top cap, it can fly up, we can hit us in the head, we can hit us in the eyes, teeth, it could knock something out. So once we've made sure all the air is out of here, next you can either get a socket with a ratchet driver and different things like that. In my case, I'm going to show you how to do it the harder way, which as you can see I've done it before because it's a bit mangled up, but we're going to use an adjustable wrench. It works perfectly. Yeah, it might scratch up and it might mangle it up a tiny bit, but it works at the end of the day. So once we've got it off, as you can see, I've got 2 tokens on it, which I love for my riding preference, and it works perfectly for me. So the way to figure out is how many tokens you need. The real way to figure out is go and ride with different amount of tokens. You could take your adjustable wrench with you and just keep sessioning down different bits of downhill and find how many tokens you want in there. So if we don't put any tokens in the suspension fork, it'll feel really plush, it'll go down, and it'll really go down, and there'll be nothing stopping it unless it gets right to the top of the crown. And there'll be no progression, as we call it. Progression is when you put tokens in there, when you fill up that airspace with a solid object. So say if I put 1 token in, it'd get progressive, only a little bit, but it'll get it at the top. So it'll go from really plush and then it'll all of a sudden go really hard at the top. If you say put 2 in like mine, it'll dampen it out a bit. It'll be plush at the bottom, and then it'll go a bit stiffer, and then right at the top it'll be nice and hard for when it comes down on say bigger bumps, it doesn't bottom out all the way. Say if we put 3 in, that's if we're going down like proper gnarly and chunky downhill, it'll proper dampen it off. You'll never really be bottoming out. it'll be a lot comfier to ride, but I find 2's about in the sweet spot in the middle, so it's really your preference of what kind of riding you want to do. Really up to you what you want to set up. Say if you're an XC rider, say you're going around some local like dirt tracks and different things like that, you might not need any, and you might just need a higher PSI for a comfier ride. You might not need any kind of progression because you're not going over rocky terrain. Say if you're a trail bike, I'll recommend maybe 1 or 2 in there to just give it a bit more progression in the mid-stroke and different things like that. And then if say you're a downhill rider, I would recommend more tokens in there to make it even more progressive so it doesn't bottom out as much, so you get a much quicker downhill run. So yet again, I can't tell you exactly what to do with this. It's your personal preference. I'm just telling you how I set it up, how other people set it up, how to set it up, and what different things means and how different things work. So I hope you enjoyed the 3rd episode on how to dial your bike. Hope you guys are all staying safe at home. I know this is horrible, the whole pandemic going on, but I hope you still guys are riding now because you have unlimited exercise, and I hope you can meet up with some of your family. Remember, 2 meter distance. So as I say, I hope you've enjoyed this video. My name is Ellis, of course, and remember to keep on riding and keep on smiling. I'll catch you guys in the next one.